don't know. There was that one verse in the Bible where some disciple came up to Jesus and said, like, can you show me like the path to heaven? And Jesus leans over and says, can you do any magic tricks?
Where you're like, huh, yeah, well, that's a really good point. Like, where was that really good point when people were throwing chairs at each other? You know?
Because it's like, if Jesus wants you to give money, you're going to go to patreon.com/KSMVidcast and you're going to give all your money to Jesus via kitchen sink microscopy.
This is the thing. There's only so many notes on musical scales. There's only so many characters in an alphabet. Yet, like in English, there's 26 standard characters. Yet, everything that could be written has not been written yet.
That's how they do it in vaudeville. Ah, yes. You out there. Welcome. Just you, not your buddy on the couch. Welcome to another not a minute. A kitchen sink microscopy. Yes. Many minutes of microscopying. I am one of your hosts, Steve Jobs, Pancreatic Cancer Edition. Sorry, just mentioning my attire. You know my name and you know the spiel. Like, share, subscribe, and yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of actually wearing the same thing as you too, so that's a little.
You're Steve
funny.
Jobs pre-cancer edition.
Yeah, that's right. I do have jeans on, but they're not blue jeans because so I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and your friend on over there on the couch. Yeah, fuck your friend. Oh wait, no, wait a minute. Well, I guess you could, but yeah, to hell with that friend. Whoever you are watching right now, you know who you are. You're awesome, and we love you. And you're definitely going to want to stick around to the end of the episode because there's probably a new song, maybe an old song that you haven't heard in a while at the end. Yeah, we have new songs at the end of every episode. Most of them. Well, some of them.
And it'll be a sing-along classic, and you can clap and like stand up and wave your arms and be like, yeah. Like they do in those churches that everyone gets all exuberant about.
So I'm guessing this is kind of leaning towards what you'd like to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm thinking like we haven't really done a deep sink dive into the phenomenon of evangelism. That kind of vaudeville showmanship that uses charisma to kind of, I don't know, corral people into their particular like church or mega church and just kind of siphon money off of people. It seems to be like the primary goal there. Because it's like, if Jesus wants you to give money, you're going to go to patreon.com/KSMVidcast and you're going to give all your money to Jesus via kitchen sink microscopy.
Yeah, because I need my own private jet because I'm doing Lord's work and I've got to have this jet to be able to get around to the places without wasting time and sitting around the common folk. There was something akin to that one of these evangelical people said about his private jet that he funded by donations.
Oh yeah, those guys are ridiculously rich, like huge mansions. Like we're talking like CEO rich.
Yeah. Oh
Just
yeah. It is. I mean, I'm not entirely clear on what the term evangelism actually means, but I mean, it's kind of tied to this kind of, like you said, sort of a showmanship kind of Ringling Brothers church sort of thing. Um, and yeah, I don't really understand the appeal of it.
evangelism, the
Okay.
spreading of the Christian gospel by public preaching or personal witness. Zealous advocacy of a cause is kind of the secondary definition in how, you know, we kind of made it into a metaphor. Like, that's so crazy, it's like one of these churches, you know, like,
Yeah.
so that's basically what the word means and has come to mean. And
Well, I
there's,
think the zealotry like connects with that, where it's overly
yeah,
um big,
but
essentially.
but notice the first part of the definition specifically called out Christian gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good point. Like, you don't see other faiths doing this kind of crap.
No, how many Buddhists are doing that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, it's kind of I don't know. Like, I wonder how like actual Christians feel about those types of churches, because it's like the as seen on TV version of Christianity. Like, it's really, I don't know, like a caricature.
Well, it is, and you know, it's kind of feels very much like a game show almost,
Mm-hmm.
where there's a bunch of flash and a bunch of music, and you know, everything is bigger than life and glitz and glitter and everything, and like really, you know, as somebody who grew up in the Christian world, like I kind of feel like that really is far off the mark from what the doctrine is all about. Like,
Same with the private jets.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, humility and stuff. It's like, you
Yeah.
know, you when you read like the New Testament, you don't hear about Jesus doing that necessarily. I mean, obviously, public speaking and engaging with people, but it wasn't there wasn't a whole bunch of crazy shit happening. Um, you know, it was very small and personal, and so that feels much more like what I guess I feel like Christian, uh, I guess, you know, if you're selling your faith, that feels more right to just engage with people individually, not be dressed up all fancy, wearing expensive suits and flying around in jets and having an awesome set and a huge building. Like, that just feels so commercial to me, and completely counter to what I understood the doctrine to be. And so it's like, I don't get how people can really get into that. Like, you
And
know,
the like the faith healing too. Like, it's all this like it's the J.J. Abrams of Christianity. Like, it's just a bunch of lens flares and action, and they don't really like get into the I don't know, like the meat of, like, you know, like you're saying, like what Christianity really is.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's all,
show.
it's like a stage performance essentially. Just for, and clearly it's for the sake of the performance, just essentially to get viewers and get people excited, and like it, it's clickbaity kind of in a way. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that it's sort of just focusing more on the show than it is on the belief system or the doctrine, I guess. You know, I have a lot more respect for people on TV, these religious channels who are just sitting there kind of telling stories or reading from their book and stuff, and that kind of thing, maybe doing an interview or something. That's okay. But this, like, it feels like a lot of these things feel a lot like the movie Idiocracy, when the president comes in with, like, it's like you expect the host of the show essentially to have like some kind of, you know, sequined robe that like an assistant pulls off, and like they've got this belt or something and strobe lights, and they've got entry music. I mean, it really is kind of like that. It's ridiculous. Like, how can, and the faith healing stuff too. I've watched some of that stuff, and I mean, I don't get how people fall for this. It's so obviously not real. Like, the it's so obviously not real. Like, I mean, when does this happen? Why only this particular person on this show? You know, and the things are so unlikely. Um, and it's just like, well, how would you know for real that this person, say, like somebody comes in a wheelchair and they're injured in some kind of way, or they can't stand up and they're walking with crutches, and all of a sudden somebody is like lays their hands on them and they're like, you know, the power of God heals you, and they fall down onto the ground and they get up and they throw their crutches and they run across the stage like, I'm healed. Like, really? I mean, if that were possible, that's what would happen in hospitals.
Yeah.
Hospitals would, this person wouldn't be on TV or in a mega church. They would be in a hospital, and people would be coming in damaged and coming out completely fine. Like, it's so outlandish and so improbable and completely, I like the, oh, I just,
Well, I don't know. There was that one verse in the Bible where some disciple came up to Jesus and said, like, can you show me like the path to heaven? And Jesus leans over and says, can you do any magic tricks?
yeah,
Yeah, don't you remember that verse? Or
yeah,
did
I
they
remember that.
omit that one? Maybe. The lost pages of the Bible. How to be a circus clown.
Yeah, I think they just discovered the scrolls that contain those passages that you're mentioning just recently. Well, yeah, and it kind of, it's almost kind of a an insult to people of faith that things have become, that everything is so commercialized and so bombastic. Like, you don't hear those people telling stories and relating personal details and reading passages and talking about their interpretations of them necessarily. Most of the time it's just like rah rah rah, a bunch of flash going on and big stuff happening and talking big, and you know, especially the faith healing, it's like that's just all that's happening. And then I don't know, it just it, it rubs me the wrong way, really. Like, I think it does a lot of harm, and the fact that these people have so much money speaks to how like easily manipulated their viewers are. That it's just like, well, if you say, well, it's kind of like politics. If you say you're part of the club, and then you proceed to say ever more like ridiculous things, well, people are going to be inclined to follow you, simply because, well, I mean, if, you know, if you're claiming to be one of the tribe and you're wrong, well, maybe you yourself are wrong, or something. It puts cracks in the foundation of your belief. So I think people just kind of roll with it, and they believe so strongly that this way is the right way, or something, that they'll fall for anything. Like, any charlatan that comes along selling them snake oil, they'll be like, yeah, I'll buy that because God, or something. Like,
I'd buy that for $1. Yeah. The faith healing stuff, you know, like seeing all this superficial crap. I mean, maybe it means a lot to some people. I don't want to like discount that, but I mean, if there's not really any depth to it, like I I, I don't know how proud I would be of that faith. Like
Yeah.
I believe so firmly in Tammy Faye Baker, and like
You're gonna start wearing the same makeup she wears. And it's a
it is the holy
lot of
makeup.
makeup.
Yeah, wow. I remember being a kid and being like, what's wrong with her face?
Mhm.
Like it's like 2 inches of freaking eyeshadow coming off her
Yep.
eyelid. Like, what the hell?
Well, she's just trying to look like who was that whore that Jesus befriended? Um,
Mary Magdalene.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I guess I should say woman of the night, a street worker. Yeah, that's a more appropriate thing. But Tammy Faye, yeah, she definitely came across looking like a whore. Um, yeah, like it just I, I feel like it's so cheap too.
Yeah.
It cheapens the entire uh, belief system. I mean, certainly to outside people looking at this insanity, like it's kind of like Jerry Springer's kind of level
Yeah.
stuff, just
I was
so
thinking that earlier.
outlandish. Yeah.
And like Jerry Springer, there could be a nugget of truth in some of the faith healing. Like it's all about the show, right? So if you see somebody who's like, healing from a leg injury or whatever, and people see that they actually like need this wheelchair and stuff, and maybe people see him around town, a few times, and then you're like, I'm gonna set this person up as like being born crippled, and then I will heal them and they will run across the stage. Like there was an injury at least. Like those nuggets of truth are what like Jerry Springer style shows latch onto and blow out of proportion. um
Yeah.
we know a person who was on Jerry Springer and said, like, yeah, a chunk of it is true and the rest is total script.
Yep.
uh,
They
and
encourage people to get crazy.
yeah, and this type of thing does work, and that's why you see it become like a more evolved definition. um but why are people that dumb?
I know. Well, it's kind of like how clickbait works online and stuff, that it's clickbait. You
Mhm.
can tell any idiot can look at a link or a headline or a thumbnail for a video and know that it's clickbait. It's so crazy. But yet people click on them anyway and they watch them. And these videos that have no substance have tens of millions of views. Absolutely no substance. Whereas stuff like what we do, well, there's like a handful of people who watch them.
We should edit an episode to look like clickbait sometime.
Just to see. I do actually kind of want to experiment
Every
with
so
that.
often it's like, to find out, click next.
Mhm. Or you like 4 weird tricks to do this thing or something. Yeah.
Clippy running across the screen.
Well, so going back to the Jerry Springer thing, like one thing that I do love about every episode of Jerry Springer was the end. Yes, there were
When
people
it was all
fighting.
over, yeah, that was a good part.
Huh?
When it was all over and the credits
Oh,
were rolling,
yeah. No,
my
but just
favorite.
before that point, no, there was
Oh.
actually kind of a nice moment. So yeah, it was completely nuts. People fighting, bouncers pulling people off each other, chairs being thrown, like complete insanity. But at the end, Jerry Springer by himself stood in front of the camera or sat in front of the camera and said a few thoughts about things. And they were like actually really thoughtful thoughts. like very well put together ideas, and it was all kind of about getting along and resolving problems and stuff. And I'm like, why can't the show be all like just this? Why
Right.
does it have to start with all of this craziness and then end with a moment of clarity where you're like, huh, yeah, well, that's a really good point. Like, where was that really good point when people were throwing chairs at each other? You know,
Yeah.
like, but I would,
And the
when it comes to,
security comes out and lays hands on people like this, you know.
yeah. Well, and, I mean, they don't even have anything like that in the evangelical shows and stuff. That
Mm-mm.
it's just all kinds of showmanship, essentially. It just,
Well, it's evangelism to like a very select crowd, the Jerry Springer thing,
mhm.
like, well, and the religion side of things too, really. Like, obviously it doesn't work on you and I.
Mhm.
We're not their targets. They could care less because they've got enough people funding their private jets.
Yeah.
So it's like they aren't really afraid of anything. They'll just because like, look, wasn't there a big scandal with Tammy Faye Baker and what's the other dude, Pat Sajak or whoever.
Pat Sajak. Yeah, I don't remember his name. I just remember her because of the makeup.
Yeah.
But I think there was a scandal, and there's actually scandals
And
aplenty
yeah,
throughout.
and nobody ever cares. They're just like,
No,
whatever.
no, they pretty much get away with it, and even if they don't, even if they get some kind of retribution leveled against them, well, they go away. You cut one head off the Hydra, and another one pops up, like, or maybe two. They just keep coming because people yum this stuff up, and I don't know why. And I mean, this is not just a religious thing. It happens in politics. It happens all over the place. Societal things like this. These kinds of, I guess, manipulators and charlatans that want to control people, and they do it through these like circus level methodologies. And but just like clickbait, it's like everybody knows that's
Mm.
clickbait, but they still click and they still watch the video.
You know what? There's evangelism in sex.
Hmm.
Like all this. I think they call it catfishing now, where you're like, I'm 12 inches, but you're like talking about like a scar you have or something. You
Yeah.
know, like you have this big trumped up show, and then like people attend this show and become disappointed,
Well,
or
yeah,
they fall for it. And
exactly. Well, Instagram filters and stuff, people putting filters on stuff and making themselves look more quote unquote perfect, or tuning their design essentially to the audience so that they can pull people in, which I don't understand, because it's like, if I look at somebody's pictures and they look a certain way and I meet them in person and they look completely different, I'm going to be like, the fuck, man?
Mhm.
What? Like, you are not the same person at all.
and why our channel isn't popular?
Hmm.
It's because we don't have like all these flashy cuts and like cartoon images and the semi fisheye lens where we're kind of like looking up at a 3/4 angle, like, all
Yeah.
exuberant and energetic. And, we're just two dudes talking at the camera.
Yep.
Like every other talk show is like you're looking at people looking at each other. And this format is like, I'm looking into your eyes, motherfucker on the couch there
Exactly. Well, and
watching.
what we do is definitely kind of like sitting in a cafe or something like Sherry's having a conversation. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these channels, yeah, they're you know, I don't necessarily want to say scripted, but very polished,
Yeah.
and very
I'd say
edited.
most are scripted.
Yeah, well, there's a few, like, Joe Rogan kind of stuff. Like it is a genuine
Yeah.
conversation,
I'm
but
I'm
it's
talking more about the event. Like Joe Rogan's actually like pretty much what we do. It's just
yeah,
more of like not direct with the audience, but
yeah.
I'm talking about like just videos to get clicks and subscribers and all this shit. It's always because they're all like in your face and changing. Like it used to be a 7-second rule in film to
Hmm.
like change the camera angle every 7 seconds, or at least have it panning, because if you don't, you'll lose their attention.
Hmm.
You can't even have like longer than 7 seconds video on some of these formats that will ever see anyone watching all the way up to like 6 or 7 seconds. Like the shortening of the attention span by all this evangelism is staggeringly like, I don't know. There's got to be a singularity where
And I think you're right that there is that people's attention spans have decreased. Yeah, the 7-second rule is a very well known one. Read about it since I was a little kid, in filmmaking. Um, and now, yeah, you're right. Like if you're not cutting every few frames practically, sound effects and whoosh, and whoosh, and psh, and booms and like shit exploding for no reason and bold text on the screen and stuff. Like if you're not doing that, people will gloss over and tune out, which I don't really I don't really understand that. Like that's too frenetic for me. It's like that's one of the things I didn't like about the JJ verse Star Trek movies. It's like it was too like there wasn't even a moment to take a breath. It, everywhere every moment was just shit going from one scene to the next, things getting ever more outlandish and crazy, like now they're here, now they're there, and then whoa, we're falling and exploding and
Mhm.
lasers and like it, and even shaky cam is now like a thing that's happening just in regular scenes, not in fight scenes anymore. Like it's just like things can't sit still. And
Yeah,
maybe is that like an ADHD thing or something
I
that
think so.
people
Yeah.
just can't they can't take a moment to take a breath,
Yeah.
just take in what's going on and think about things. They
You
have to
got to
be
paint with,
assailed and like slapped and pounded with
yeah.
data and information constantly, like constant changes, everything changing and flipping and like otherwise they can't remain engaged. Although it's like I don't know how you can even like be engaged in that sense. Like it's like noise overload at that point. So are
Yeah.
you really absorbing the information when you're not taking it in calmly? Um,
Any any of your senses will develop uh the word's escaping me, but um resistance. Um when you like take a little bit of poison every day, you build up a tolerance.
Tolerance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
all of your senses can build up tolerance if you just constantly hit them, you know. Like I think I've said before, like until I just mentioned this now, were you thinking about the feel of your ass on the chair beneath you? You are
Mm.
now, but you had absolutely no consciousness of that before I said that.
Yeah.
And that's
Or
because you're like, I don't need to pay attention to that anymore. There's too much going on there. Yeah.
yeah, or an object in your peripheral vision that's just been
Mhm.
sitting there. Are you constantly thinking about it? No, you've gotten used to it.
Yeah. You got to paint with negative spaces in order to like allow people to have multiple climaxes in a given chunk of your entertainment, right?
Yeah.
Like oh, that
Oh,
was
for sure.
cool. Oh, this is cool too. It's
It
because you like let your guard down a bit.
well, and the same principle applies in music. Rests,
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
quiet moments. You want, I mean, sure, you can have things get chaotic for a while, but having quiet time where you can kind of like recollect your thoughts and like building to things, and things being fluid and not just like a square wave of just being like slamming
Yeah.
your head into information over and over and over again. I mean, it'd be like this. Okay, since we're already probably demonetized, I mean, it'd be like if you just spent all day slapping your dick or your clit over and over again, well, you'd become desensitized. Eventually, you wouldn't be able to feel that anymore,
Yep.
but you'd probably never be able to get off again. Um, and so that, like, is that a better way to do things? That, like, just this high level um pressure of information, just
Yeah.
constant changing, and like no, I don't think so. I think simplicity can be better. Yeah, sure, it's a lot of fun watching Jerry Springer and stuff, and watching people like argue and fight over their personal problems and everything once in a while, but that's not something we should do daily, and that's definitely not a way we should live our lives. And the same thing applies to your faith. Like,
Yeah.
we shouldn't things should not be, a high production value TV show full of pyrotechnics and rock bands and things like that when it comes to your personal religious faith. There's no place for that. Like,
Yeah.
it's a personal thing, and people who want to engage with you should do that on a personal level. um Anything else is, well, it's diminishing the value of that. I think, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That painting with the empty space sort of thing, that musical rest, I think all that stuff is maybe not, it's never the real popular ones, is it?
Mm-mm.
But it's the ones that are really good, like songs. I mean, like, it's not the single, right? It's not the one you hear 5 times a day being blasted into your skull by the evangelism of FM radio. Um, it's always like the deeper track where you're like, so there was a Foo Fighters song that featured one of the guitarists from the Eagles. I forget which one. Um, and he goes to do his guest solo, and I'm watching an interview with Taylor Hawkins, the late drummer of the Foo Fighters, being like, it was so awesome. The first 16 bars of his guitar solo, he didn't play a single fucking note. And it's like, actually, that is super cool about that solo, like, because there's a breakdown and just kind of like a beat and a gentle background rhythm, and you're like, there should be a solo here. It's coming. I can feel it. And then it starts, and it's like a note, and he sustains it. And there's another giant pause, and he's like, and it's like coming in like syncopated, and it's like, oh, this is jarring my brain. It's so cool. It's like not one of their popular songs.
And ultimately, I haven't heard that, but it was probably musically very simple.
Pretty
And
much,
some
yeah.
of those
Technically speaking,
things
yeah.
can be super powerful. Like, if you just wham everybody's ears with a cacophony of sound, well, that's not the same. Like, there's something is lost there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm a shit guitar player. I don't even want to call myself a guitar player. But on this concept album we're working on, I somehow busted out like a couple of like really cool like jazzy solos that kind of have that cool groove to them, but they're just really simple. Like, I don't have a whole lot of technical skill or anything.
well,
So
I
yeah, like less is more sometimes.
exactly. And that my one of my favorite genres in music, blues,
Yeah.
shows that like just a few simple notes, very, very basic musical structure, but done in a very human and emotional way, um, is far more powerful than the most technically incredible song structure. Like it just a few notes, you know.
I wonder if the way music affects us emotionally when we hear it, that impact, I wonder if that is the actual like acoustical rendition of a language, like an actual legit language that
Oh no,
evolved on its own.
I actually, so that's interesting. You should point that out, because I've always thought, and one of my friends from way back in the day, we used to have these conversations about music and, well, all kinds of things. But one of the things that we spent a long time talking about was that music itself is a language. It, in my mind, like, he had different views about it, but in my mind, music is almost like taking brain waves and converting them into something that another person can hear and turn it into brain waves they can experience. So you can like feel an emotion, express it through sound, essentially, and another person can hear that and then feel the things you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, in a
And
very
then,
rudimentary way. Obviously, this is not a complex thing. You're not really
yeah.
gonna, although you could tell a pretty complex story with music, but it requires your listener to be
Yeah.
very in tune uh, musically.
Well, there's
But
also a dialectic like
mm-hmm.
portion to that, I think I said that word right. Like in the East, they favor these chords.
Mm-hmm.
And, like in the, tropics, they tend to favor rhythm and stuff like that. Like there's little cultural influences on the language of music.
Sure, localized things well, it's kind of like the same thing with food.
Yeah.
Certain places they like foods that are spicy, some places they like them sweet, some places like a lot of meat, some places like a lot of corn or something. But nevertheless, like, I can listen to music from Iran and still feel something. I'm like, whoa, that's like pump up music. Like, and it's like, I don't really know the language. I've never been there. But nevertheless, I can still feel something. It's so universal in its reach that I think music is definitely absolutely a language. I think it's indisputable that it's some form of language. Um, it
Probably a
may
good point to
actually,
mention. We did a whole episode on this, and you should check that out up there,
yep.
if I remember.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that was a good one too. Like that's such a cool topic to get into, because the way I see it is it's something that everybody speaks, like,
Mhm.
or understands, I should say. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like the universal translator, if you will. It's like you always hear what you need to hear, but you can't always say what you need to say. Like,
Yeah.
so there are people that can speak it, like you and I, like we can take these thoughts and convey them into a musical piece, that
Hmm.
effectively like a vinyl was etched based off of whatever was going on at the time. You know,
Yeah.
like that's why all songs are so unique. It's like they could only have been made in that moment.
By
When you
that
like
particular
put pen to
person.
paper, or like bang the keys on the piano, like that is the only time in the universe that song will ever be created, because it's all totally cerebral.
Well, and this is the thing. There's only so many notes on musical scales. There's only so many characters in an alphabet. Yet, like in English, there's 26 standard characters. Yet, everything that could be written has not been written yet. over thousands of years. Um, well, I don't know how long English has technically been around, but a long time, let's say, and it never will end. There will always be new stories to be told, new poetic ways of saying things that can be crafted from just those 26 characters. And the same thing with music. It's like there's only so many notes, there's only so many sounds you can have. Obviously, when it comes down to synths and computers and stuff, you can create new timbres of sound, but the notes are still the same. You're dealing with certain frequencies. And I also find it really interesting that those particular frequencies line up the way they do in ways that, like, if you deviate from this, everybody knows you have. Like, it sounds wrong if you play a note that is not one of the standard frequencies.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
It's like if you pronounce something a little bit differently than most people do, they pick up on that. Mm-hmm. Sorry if that went boom. You know, like I had my 6th grade teacher would say vegetable instead of vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little intricacies like that stick out, but it's like there can be an art to it.
Sure.
Well, like jazz and blues and stuff like that. You know, the reason there's so many iterations of potential songs is because there's so many ways to like throw in a kind of an off note here or there. Like I love doing that from time to time, just like have some dissonant notes that are surrounded by like good notes.
As we've discussed, that is actually one of the things I love about your particular way of crafting music, because I can't do that.
Yeah,
I can't do dissonance.
It's like a formed chaos or something.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, somehow, well, there's been a few songs I've done that have some dissonance here and there that have been pretty good, but it's not something I do on the regular, and you do, and it sounds good. Like, although it's kind of an acquired taste, like, yeah, sometimes I hear, like, the first time I hear a song like that you've done, I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of takes me out of the moment. But the more I listen to it, the more it feels right. Like, and then that becomes the moment that is correct.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a good thing. And
like when you end a song with like a pause and a random bass drum.
Exactly. Well, and going in that direction, like, I guess, you know, music is a language, a universal language that could be understood by anyone. The movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Oh, I guess that's my movie recommendation for this episode. There was the scene near the end where the alien craft came down and they had the light panels and the music playing and stuff. I mean, I wish I could insert this, but we might get some copyright stuff. But it was like everybody knows this if you ever seen this movie. But that's Star Wars. Yeah. I'm thinking of more the
beautiful music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it kind of was, but the interesting thing about this particular scene is the beings from another planet, another place, and the people of Earth were communicating through music. Mm-hmm. So there was no language. It was like they were causing these tones to be created, and we were causing tones to be created and communicating back and forth and like figuring out what was being intended by it. You know, it was kind of a little bit of a gimmick in a way that they suggested there might have been some kind of specific meaning to particular sounds, as if it was an alphabet, which I didn't really agree with, but I like the premise of
some like, dialect could adopt that interpretation.
Sure. But I like the premise of, if we encountered beings we've never seen before, from another continent, another island, another planet, another dimension or something, like what would be the best way to communicate? Music. That'd be the best, most easily understood thing. And I think almost every living thing would understand it, as long as you have ears. That's the most important thing. So if you live on a planet that
Damn Vulcans.
yeah, you're coming here from a planet that has a vacuum atmosphere, well, you probably can't hear anything. But I think that's like a pretty good universal language. And I mean, it's evident too. Like I listen to a lot of music from countries all around the world, and I don't know all the languages, don't know what's being said, but I can still hear the sound of things and feel that this emotion. And it's like when I look up the lyrics, it's like, oh yeah, that aligns with exactly what I was feeling. Like there's a song that's angry, there's a song that's uplifting, there's a song that's kind of patriotic or something, and it's like, yeah, you could totally hear that in there. Even if you don't know one word of someone else's language, you can still hear that in there.
Yep.
Interesting deviation here, by the way.
Well, yeah, it is. Music is kind of an evangelism because if you think about it, when you share your song with the world,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because like it's something that you said that's now recorded and can be replayed, which is kind of unique. Well, maybe not so unique now with technology, but I mean, like in the early days of spoken language, recording something and replaying it wasn't really like part of the equation.
Yeah.
Folk but you know, like
tough.
as things evolve, you know, there you go. But you know, like popular songs on the radio in your ears all the time, there's a kind of evangelism to that.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And I think I would say that's like the good side of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, you're inspiring people to do something, hopefully good things, I would hope, or telling a story from the past, you know,
Smoke.
Smoke. Like listening to songs, you know, there's so many songs that I've heard, like old folk songs and stuff, where it's like, yeah, like none of what is being said applies to today, but I can still feel it, and it still gives me a certain level of goosebumps, I guess, that like, oh yeah, I know exactly what they're talking about. And in a way, the human condition, humans haven't really changed much. We're still kind of the same people we were back when the pyramids were built and before that. We're really not that different. We just, well, we lost the technology that allowed us to build pyramids, and we gained new technology that allowed us to build spaceships. So that's
whips.
kind of the difference.
Massive, yeah. Massive whips.
Yeah. Turns out, by the way, that's not really true. But that's a topic for another episode, I think.
I've seen some massive whips in my time.
And that too is a topic for another episode. Although we might want to like post that episode, that particular episode, talking about the massive whips on an alternate channel like X videos or Pornhub or something like that. Yeah. Oh, we actually should do that now that I'm thinking about it. Like create a channel on a porn site and do this very same thing. But
yeah,
but like anything goes at that point.
Like we record it after these and we get like 4 more beers in and we're just like whipping it out.
Yeah. Oh man. That'd be interesting. Well, so yeah, if people want to see that, yeah, leave your thoughts in the comment section too. What do you think about that idea? Should we start a side channel on a porn site?
It should sink my Croska tits.
Or my Croska dicks? Uh, hmm.
How many microscopy parodies can there be? I keep amazing myself at how many different ways you can twist that obscure word that nobody ever uses.
Yeah, which yeah, they use it so little that when I type that in most places, I get the red underline.
Yeah,
Like, oh yeah, you've misspelled a word.
that word sounds funny. That can't be a word.
Mhm.
Real people don't say that.
Well, that was the genius of the origin of this channel, is like we each contributed one word to this.
Yeah,
So
like battery acid blues.
battery acid blues. Hell yeah, that was a good song. If we hadn't already used that, well, I mean, maybe we'll throw it in at the end. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think you had your own. Well, there were two versions. There's my original version, and then
yeah,
there's your version that added stuff to it, which I
yeah.
think
That's the
better.
one we've used. So if you got the demo version, that might be cool.
Oh yeah, I think I do. Let me
All
just.
that stuff should be on the 20th anniversary edition of Within Human Vigor,
That's
due out
right.
this year if we can get it off our asses. After all, we've been working on a concept album for over 15 years.
It's gonna
17,
be good.
18? A long time.
Yeah, but we've refined what we're doing much more recently. Like I think before it was kind of like, well, we should do this, and now we're kind of into the point where we have a much better idea.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we'll just have to
That's
put it
that's how
together.
a true, like, I don't know, like we should almost call the album Iliad or something like that,
Yeah.
like, because it's this long, like, drawn out, detailed process.
Yeah.
Like most people, like with record labels and shit, they got to churn stuff out every couple of years, and that's why I think most concept albums kind of suck, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because all the music feels forced into the story, but
Yeah.
it's when you get those rare few concept albums that like every song is a banger.
Mm-hmm.
Like Operation Mindcrime is a great example. Like one of the best albums Queensryche did was a
Well,
story, one
well,
story, but you could
Planet.
pluck any song out and it was like, yeah.
Well, in Planet P Projects, Pink World is another good one. Um, I love that song or that album. Um,
It is kind of like a big song when that happens though, right?
yeah.
Like, oh, there's a story, and like each little chapter is like its own uh you know acoustical experience.
Well, and we've kind of had this kind of concept album idea for a long time, and I've had quite a bit of time to piece things together and make a proper story where, yeah, we're not rushed. There's no executives breathing down our neck like, you've got to make profits, bitch. Like that isn't happening. Like nobody even knows this exists because it doesn't yet until we create it. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have that breathing room. Although it, in a way, that also is kind of a downside in that um without that pressure, we're inclined to kind of take our time, and maybe
Right.
maybe we might take too much time. Um, yeah,
Just a
it
bit.
is. coming up on 20 years. So I guess we better put that together. So that's another thing too in the comments. Yeah, like if you want to encourage us to release this particular album, this concept album we've been working on for a long time, talking about forever, let us know. It's not going to be cheap because, you know, well, as things go, it starts off like, oh, a simple thing, we'll just burn a CD, and then it's like, oh, well, now why don't we release like a vinyl, and then, oh, well, why don't we release a vinyl with a fucking comic book in it, and then, oh wait, we got to do like a whole entire between track audio story and stuff. So it's getting bigger, but it's gonna be awesome.
And then there was even like talk of making a short film music video, like front to back, each song, like the story being told in like a music video format.
Yeah,
like that would have been pretty cool. That's gonna be like that's like a platinum level Patreon.
yeah, exactly. Well, okay, so maybe and I know we're sort of not really quite on topic now, but I mean, you know, it's still,
we're evangelizing our band.
We are, yes. The power of Christ compels you, yes, to donate on Patreon to fund this crazy epic album project.
Jesus Christ looks like me. Jesus Christ.
Well, would you know, we would be able to fund this if this were a Christian album. And wait a minute, wait, hold on a second. hang on wait, just hit pause for a second on the cassette recorder. Like, what if we pretended this was a Christian album and got all of these organizations that do you know, music production and stuff for these Christian bands and stuff to fund this thing, and we came up with some kind of sly tactic to convince them, to evangelize to them that, like, yes, indeed, this is a Christian album. Like, I know it doesn't sound like it.
We'd have a sticker that says featuring Tammy Faye Baker, but it's like audio from like homemade porn.
Yeah.
Like,
what, dude?
Well, it's technically Tammy Faye Baker.
I mean, as a kid, never mind. I'll just leave that alone. But wouldn't it be cool if we became the first musical creators in history to have a fully backed Christian album that had one of those stickers, the like, you know, explicit language stickers on it?
God, if we did that, like, I feel like, you know how like Rick rolling became a thing? I feel like we would become a thing like that.
Could be, yeah.
People would be like, oh man, I got altered.
Well, you know, there's merit in that. But yeah, well, maybe we should actually specifically craft an album just to do that. Just to play all those organizations and extract as much money from them as we can. Why not?
Yeah, because there might be some scandal in touting ourselves as a Christian band, and then they listen to this album about like cyborgs and suicide and destroying the world.
Oh man.
Yeah, that could be well, there could be death threats from that.
Probably so. But hey, you know, some evangelicalists have done that, like similar things.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to be flying around in your own plane, right?
God, how did we not talk about like the kind of darker side of evangelism where there's like cults?
Ooh,
Jim Jones and all that stuff. Like, that was kind of the same thing, just real dark.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Damn. I wonder if we should make that its own episode because there's a lot of meat in that burger.
Yeah, yeah, there is.
That's
We could just split it here.
yeah. Well, yeah. I want to think about that one a little bit, but yeah, that I mean they are related for sure.
Mhm.
There's certainly links between the evangelical TV personalities and cults. And
Oh,
really, it almost feels like a lot of those things are very cult-like. The faith
oh
healers,
yeah.
they're very cult-like. Um,
Well, we praise one in the media and denounce the other. You know, when it's a cult, we're like, oh, that kind of thinking is bad. And then when it's Jesus, it's like, oh, we should all think that way.
yeah.
Well,
Well, I
those are
think
kind of two sides of the same coin, but you treat them way differently.
I think they're ultimately kind of the same thing, but it's when a bunch of people die that all of a sudden the public takes notice of it and criticizes it.
Yeah.
Um, but before that, oh yeah, everything's fine. Like, back in the 70s and stuff, Scientology was like the awesome. And not so much now. Although I don't want to say like people have died necessarily, but it's very cult like. Um,
yeah, I don't know. I haven't been up on it lately, but I would not be surprised if people have died.
they have, but I don't
Yeah.
want to say that, and I'm not actually saying that because I don't want people knocking at my door late at night.
Oh yeah. Like they their reach is real.
Oh yeah.
Like so you know how like they made up their own words and stuff.
Mhm.
Um one of them was in theta. And it was like based off of thetans, which were like some aliens that I don't know, like magic school bust into your body and like I don't know,
Yeah, like
whatever.
negative entities that would attach themselves to you,
Yeah,
essentially, is the
but
idea.
yeah, whatever it was like their Satan, right? And and it was like the bad thing in theta. Oh, you don't want, yeah. And and I created, this is in the MySpace days, right? There was like I created like a, against Scientology group or something, and then it gets shut down like super quick, right? Which is, like nowadays you'd say, oh yeah, like that happens all the time, Facebook jail and shit like that. But like in the days of MySpace, it was like pretty liberal what you
Mhm.
could do and say. Like nobody was like hovering over you, like, hey,
Yeah,
can't say that. Whoop, give me that, give me that.
there weren't really
Someone,
algorithmic uh, filters or anything at that
yeah.
point.
But given all that, I was like, well, I'll just recreate the group with a new email or something. And I go to create a new email address. And I had come up with this word of my own, enthadiology, like to know about being the skeptic of, all of it is Scientology, right?
Which is pretty clever, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I made up this word, enthadiology. And I go to put in enthadiology at gmail.com. And Google says, we don't allow profanity. And I was like, excuse me? A word that I just made up is profanity? How did I affect an entire culture enough to say, ooh, I don't like that word?
Well, they have their tendrils all throughout the tech world
Yeah,
and the world in general
that
too.
was creepy as fuck. Like,
Yes,
I
yeah,
felt like there was someone in the room with me when that happened. I was
uh,
like,
and
what?
and I don't want to like scare you, but there might have been someone in the room with you at that point. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
jeez.
well, and
Another
they've
beer.
infiltrated governments, government organizations, and things like that. there's a whole, I mean, you can read about it if you really want to go into it, but yeah, the Church of Scientology definitely was a powerful manipulator.
Oh, and another great plug, evangelizing our interview with a guy that got kicked out of Scientology.
Oh yeah. Which I have to say is a feat in and of itself, because
I mean, that technically wasn't our episode. Those other guys were the hosts.
Yep.
The ones in the shadows with the really deep voices.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't us.
It was guest hosts. Yeah.
Yep.
We had our friends.
We wash our hands.
Guest hosting. Yeah, that wasn't us.
That wasn't really our episode.
But go check it out, because it's good. It's probably up there, or it was. Oh man. Well, so I think I think the next thing we should talk about is cults. We're on a roll, I guess. It's religion now, and religion-esque things, until we get new ideas. So yeah.
Religion-esque? What profanity is this? That offends me.
Religionology or something like that.
Imagine that. Making up a word and having it be deemed profanity right away. How baller is that? Like,
do you touch some buttons that you should not have touched, apparently?
I made up a word that was instantly profanity. Who else can claim that?
I don't think in the history of humankind that's ever happened before. So
if George Carlin were alive, it would become like the 8th dirty word.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, well, we're like about an hour-ish in, so it's probably a good point to end it for now. But I don't know. I'd really love to hear what people have to say about things. Leave your comments down there. Tell us what you think. What we should talk about. Should we talk about cults next? Because I think that would be a good one. Maybe dangerous, but a good one. But we're no strangers to danger. Hell, whatever people face first, right into danger.
Whatever people comment, we'll probably already have recorded the next episode, so they won't really be giving us advice on the next episode.
Maybe
because it's already there in the cutting room.
Well,
not now, but like now when you're watching. That's the truth.
What are we looking at?
You're looking at
now, sir.
Oh wait, he just hit his head on the ceiling. Halloween episode.
Knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. Oh man. Well, regardless of whether it'll be able to influence future things, leave your comments. We do read them and pay attention to them. It's really important. Probably more important than liking, sharing, and subscribing, actually. Excuse me.
Oh, comments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave algorithms and stuff.
Have conversations down there, like
bring us your algorithms.
I'd like to put my fingers in your sorry. Anyway, yeah. We're already demonetized, so I can say what I want now.
Wasn't there some movie in the early 90s with Robin Williams playing a gynecologist with like a thick accent, and he said, I have to check your Volvo, or something like that.
Wait, that sounds really familiar.
I'm pretty sure that was Robin Williams' name. It was about weddings or something.
I know I've seen that.
If you remember the movie I'm talking about, talk about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And share.